Yeah, I think that Honorable Abu Janapo made an eloquent presentation in the wrong direction. I think the problem is not public institutions like universities and others um, entering into public-private partnerships. That happens. I think what is raising the ire of the public, which Honorable Kujato Ablakwa appropriately points out, is private individuals acquiring these assets under dubious circumstances. So I think that that is what we need to deal with. I commend for the bill, and I suggest that, as you indicated, I think that can be expanded. A big part of the problem is not just the buyers, it is also the sellers.
Right.
The people in government who are making these sales, their motives, their guidances, and whether these sales are being made in the public interest or not. And I believe that there ought to be very strong protections of public assets to prevent people from selling them, because I can tell you, if we do have time to discuss judgment debts, it is precisely the same thing that people come and say they have judgment debts.
Some of them are cooked.
The government doesn't even go to court. It settles this on the side. People get kickbacks. It is the same as these assets that we are talking about.
And in fact, the Supreme Court detected it when it said that it was as if a brigade had been set up to create loot and share. That's judgment debt. Typically what happens with some of the judgment debts, the people who get the judgment debt, actually it's a brigade in connivance with the people we entrust with the public purse to create, and then they loot and then they share.
Absolutely. And actually, if you recall, during Dr. Frimpong Boateng's interview, the case that came to his attention was for $88 million US. If you think about it, this was only one deal in the 8-year span of the government. It means that theoretically, if they were doing only one or maybe two of such deals a year, we had him for $1 billion. And I am telling you that you can mark it. When this government is done, judgment debt and how it has been settled in the shadows will be the biggest financial scandal. These things that Honorable Kujato Ablakwa is working on, which is very commendable, will look like small, what do they call it, plantains, compared to the big things that they are doing in judgment.
So, Dr. Atta-Kennedy, you were making a point there, and we have not forgotten that you wanted to, situate properly what state capture means and how it is manifested and the implications for this country.
Yes, these things, as I have said earlier, the minister was eloquent, but he focused on institutions, like universities and prison services and all that. There are problems that must be regulated. The problem, though, that is really getting the public's eye is private people who are using connections to acquire these properties. And we know from our history that even revolutionary governments are not immune to cronyism. The Donkome privatization of state-owned enterprise under PNDC. We saw that, and Honorable Kujato Ablakwa has brought quite a few of these, and the SNIT hotels that almost happened a few weeks ago. The public did very well, and I commend them and the TUC for what they did. We have two significant weapons, our voices and our votes, to cure these things. I support fully President Mohammed's Commission of Inquiry, but I want to suggest that when we talk about state capture, we should not see it in the narrow sense of just selling these physical assets. That is part of it, but I suggest that we will find out that we've lost even more money through government judgment debts that went on. We lost a lot of public money through the fraudulent award of contracts, even though we set up a public procurement authority. And I want to tell the people of Ghana that For example, if you study South America, Brazil, for example, the corruption in Petrobras was actually spearheaded, its check was spearheaded by the judiciary, which ended up putting significant ministers into prison and others. So we are the men we have been waiting for. And I worry that this culture of impunity that is going on, like Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa rightly points out, can one day lead us to where we don't want to go. Mr. Rawlings may be dead, but his spirit is still among us. And as the anger on the streets mount, we have to be very, very careful. Like I said the last time I was here, when you see somebody's beard on fire, you should fetch water and put it beside your beard, because your beard could also catch on fire. So I say that judgment debt, the selling of these public buildings, lands, the award of contracts. I noticed that Okudzeto Ablakwa was talking about some of these contracts and when people got them and all that. The same thing happened, for example, during COVID, when a company was awarded the COVID test contract at the airport, even before they were registered as a company in Ghana.
Yeah.
That is part of state capture. The whole Ejapadia document is a blueprint for state capture. I am telling you that the problem we have in our country is that there are a lot of people in our public space, in government. This government is the word, but it's happened in governments before, whose sole purpose, regardless of the policy initiative, is to figure out how to milk the public space and transfer public resources into private hands for it to become private wealth. That is why we have so much incompetence. It is profitable incompetence, because the more incompetent state services are, the more they force people and they manage to get rent seeking. That is what we are witnessing on a grand scale.
All right. The Ejapadia document you refer to is not authenticated. Many people reading it around, but we know that there have been attempts at denying the authenticity of it. There have been all sorts of suspicions and rumors. Even the bank collapse, bank cleanup exercise, the rumor and the claims that CBG was an attempt to another state capture, so that eventually certain people will take it and own it and command, the heights of the banking industry or financial industry, so to speak. Anyway, but Ato Kennedy, before we, in just a minute, and we're moving on to something else, what do you appreciate is in the psyche of the leaders after those who acquire these lands? Those who are selling these lands, they didn't acquire them. Those who acquired them didn't sell them.
Because we have entered a new era of politics. Whatever you say about Nkrumah, he cared about this country. When he was overthrown, they did a commission of inquiry. He didn't own any house, not even a house. Peduase Lodge that was built for him, he gave it to the state. He didn't have a bank account. We have a new breed of politicians who think private wealth is the be-all and end-all of being in politics. They want to just acquire wealth. Professor Buzia once said that he thought that a party must strictly separate those who believe in public service from those who are entrepreneurs. And that while there should be a relationship, there should be a firewall between them. We have broken that firewall. So basically, most politicians also double as business people. A lot of people know that some of the biggest people who have gotten contracts under the current government have actually been MPP functionaries, some of who hold office, just as we almost saw happen in the Smith case.
Yeah.
I think that is